Hi, welcome back to the shed for the start of a short series on something that I've not done before, and that is to take a relatively cheap guitar, completely strip it, refinish it, and then upgrade most of the major components just to see what kind of a difference we can make. And the guitar in question is a Squire Stratocaster in this sunburst finish. Now, the guitar was acquired by a friend of mine. He's not really into Strats, but someone was giving it away, so he thought he'd have it. He is, however, quite a fan of the Shadows. Always used to walk around in a Shadows t-shirt, listening to the Shadows on his Walkman. Had a little dog called Apache. So he thought it'd be a really good idea if we could turn this into something very similar to the guitar that Hank Marvin used to use. So to that end, I've got a tin of Fiesta Red paint from Nitrolac. So we'll be changing this from Sunburst into Fiesta Red. However, it will be ever so slightly relic. It's not going to be a heavy relic. I'm not going to be beating it with chains and stuff, but there will be wear on it, etc. In terms of the guitar, from what research I've been able to do, it dates from 2010. It's in pretty good condition. There is a tiny little bit of wear on the frets, but there's nothing to worry about. So they will probably get a quick polish, but nothing more. The bulk of the work is literally going to be stripping and refinishing this. However, there are a few things that need doing to the headstock first. Because currently it has the big goofy headstock that you might associate with kind of a 70s Strat. I'm not a fan of those, and neither is my mate. So we're going to modify that and we'll trim it down to the much nicer small headstock shape. That might introduce some issues with these tuners because we are going to change the tuners out. So there might be the case that we have to plug and re-drill all the holes from there. If I can get away without doing that, I will do, because it would be a pain. But if it's necessary, we will do. And I've got a load of replacement parts to make this look prettier. So we've got a nicer pick guard. It looks a bit more aged than the white one. It's also 3-ply, not 1-ply. We've got some genuine Fender knobs and pickup covers. We've got a Fender neck plate. We've got a set of Goto vintage style tuners. I'm a big fan of these, and I think they will make this look a lot nicer and probably add a lot more tuning stability to boot. And we've got a set of Tone Rider pure vintage pickups. Now, I used the Classic Blues set in my last build and they were absolutely brilliant. I see no reason why these shouldn't be just as good, just slightly different voicing to them. But given what we're trying to do with the guitar, I think that will work absolutely spot on. There's a few bits I haven't got. I haven't got any of the electrical components yet. The reason I don't want to do that is because there is a not quite so subtle difference between these Affinity Stratocasters and, say, an American Stratocaster or a Japanese built Stratocaster, and that is the body is significantly thinner. If I take a measurement where the body meets the heel of the neck, that's giving me about 23-ish millimeters. Having done that measurement before on my American standard, I know that on that is kind of getting on towards 30 millimeters, so we're looking at a 1/4 of an inch thinner body. The knock-on effect from that is I might not be able to get a full-size switch in there, so I'm going to have to wait until I kind of strip this to pieces to understand what the routing layout is in there, what depth I've got within that route, as to whether I can fit the switch that I'd like to use in there, which is like a Switchcraft one. I don't know what's in here. I don't know what the pots are like. I don't know what the switch is. I'm pretty sure, given the budget nature of this guitar, they won't be as good as they could be. And if we can, we will swap them out. Now, I've had a little go on this. I've only played it acoustically, and everything seems to work fine, apart from at certain times, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear this or not, but if you hit a string hard, there's like this weird overtone thing going on there, like a rattly overtone, and it's coming from the springs in the tremolo unit. Now, I don't know if you can see or not, but the tremolo is actually decked onto the body, so I'm thinking it's probably because the claw isn't tight enough in there, and that's causing that to happen. But I want to make sure that everything is okay and we're not having any problems before I start to strip this down. So I'm just going to whip the cover plate off, and we can see if we can just tighten that up a little bit. I can't see any point in pressing ahead with this until we're absolutely certain there's no issues that need resolving. And as you can hear there, they are quite rattly in there. And as I thought, that has sorted it all out. So the last thing I'm going to do before I start taking this to pieces, I'm just going to plug it into the shop amp just to make sure that all the electrics are working, even if they are going to get removed, and to just give us a kind of a basic idea of what it sounds like before we start to do anything to it. Okay, so it's not the best amp in the world, and this thing probably isn't fully in tune, but here goes. So that's the bridge position, bridge and middle, middle, middle and neck, and neck. And I'll be honest, I don't really like the sound of that. There's no tone control on the bridge pickup or the middle position. But it does work on the neck. The volume works, but it is kind of all or nothing. So not brilliant in terms of tone and not particularly good in terms of how the controls are working. So at the very least we need to do some work with that, but I think the chances are we're just going to probably rip all of the electrics out and start from scratch. Okay, with that ascertained, I don't think there's anything really we need to talk about now. We can start pulling this thing to bits. I'll just start this by whipping the strings off. These strings are actually really old and horrible. You can see they're a bit rusty in places. As we'd say back in the day, you'll get blood poisoning off of them. And we'll just cut those down. These are not getting reused. Get them out of the way. Start getting things stripped down. save all the hardware as much as possible. Now, even though I'm not going to be actually using any of the components on the scratch plate, I am going to take a little bit of time and just see if I can fix what's going on with that tone pot. I actually think it's a really good idea that every time you are faced with a challenge like this, even if it's not something that's going to be included in your final product, just take that opportunity to investigate something, see if you can find a solution, because you never know, the next time you come across that problem, it might be on a job that does matter, and you'll already be armed with a solution. Pop that out. Just wait for the soldering iron to warm up. We'll unsolder these two wires from the jack. They look a bit ropey. And then we can have a look at the rest of this electrics. Those joints didn't look factory, has to be said. They look like they'd already been played with. So just solder back. Well, it didn't take much doing. We'll get the body out of the way for the time being. And see if we can find out what's going on with this tone pot. Okay, so I've had a look at this, and what I've discovered is that the tone pot is actually goosed. It's not doing anything whatsoever. So in terms of finding a solution, the solution would be pretty straightforward. If I were to want to fix this, I would simply swap out the pot for a new one. However, as I'm not using this, there's absolutely no point in doing that. Okay, so we can get rid of that now, and we can have a look at this cavity in here, just so we can see what we can fit into it. Now, it is routed in very, very deep, as you can see. That feels like it goes to within 3 or 4 mil of the back of the guitar. And I've got an old super switch here, which I think is at least as deep as the Switchcraft switch that I want to use. And if I kind of line that up with the top of the guitar, which is roughly where it would go, I've got 2 or 3 mil of clearance underneath it. So that's good. So that means I can use the switch that I want, so I can get some stuff ordered now. The route is plenty big enough for the CTS pots I want to use. In fact, the pots that are on the scratch plate are kind of the full-size ones. I was expecting the tiny little ones, but they weren't there. So now we've got that ascertained, we can really start to get everything off here and get it stripped down. Okay, we'll just separate them. I'll put the body to one side. I'm trying to make out what's written in the pocket, but I can't really see. It's a bit smudged. Looks like it says 2019, but that wouldn't really make sense with regards to the serial number. But there you go. We'll put the body out of the way anyway for the time being, because we're going to concentrate on the neck to start with. Well, you can see actually a little bit clearer on the heel. If I get my big eyes on, looks like that says April the 19th 2001. So it actually looks like this is from 2001, not 2010. So the information I got off the internet appears to have been wrong, which isn't unusual. There you go. You can see there that a bit of aging has gone on. So yeah, that could potentially be what happens after 20 odd years of life. The good news is there isn't any cracking or anything on this heel, which is great, so nothing to worry about there. So next step is to get the string trees and these tuners off. And I think looking at this, we are going to have potentially some issues, because if I get the new tuners out, the new bushings fit like a brick in a top hat. So that's not going to work. We'll just see what happens when we drop these in. And they don't really work there either, because we're very close at this end, and even with them kind of juggled together the best we can, there's still significant gaps in there. So unfortunately we are going to have to plug these and re-drill the holes. It's not a massive thing to do, but could have done without it. But there you go, we are where we are. Now there are another set of bushings in there, but looking at those, they're actually smaller than the ones I tried, so we've definitely got a little bit of work on our hands. So I'm going to put all those away and we can have a quick recap on where we are, which is everything's as it should be with the body. There's no major defects I can see. The routings are fine for everything that we want to do, so we don't have to make any amendments to those. It's literally a case of getting everything stripped off it, getting the finish off, getting it into the colour that we want. In terms of the neck, equally as good. The frets are good, not got a problem with those. The fretboard actually looks really nice. It just needs a bit of a clean up and an oil. There's nothing wrong with the back of the neck. The heel is good. We found out that it's actually a 2001 model, not a 2010, and we need to plug and re-drill the tuner holes, which is a pain. I'm hoping that we'll be able to do it in such a way that you won't be able to see that they've been done. It's only a fraction of a millimetre out on each one that's making it wrong, so shouldn't be a problem. So the next step with this is to get all the finish stripped off it and get those holes plugged and redone for the tuners. However, that's going to be for the next episode. I'm going to leave this one here. So as always, don't forget to hit the like button if you've enjoyed this. Subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.